G'day ladies and gents, and welcome to Sadness Thunder. No, this is not another War Thunder but I'm dead inside video, but it might as well could be. The MiG-19S is really, really sad, and there's a very good reason behind that, but we'll get into that in a moment. This video is fairly highly requested, and unfortunately, as much as I like to try at least a little bit to keep things positive, especially lately, I've made a sort of dedicated effort to try and not be as salty about everything. I don't really want to be salty about the MiG-19S, by the way, but I genuinely don't have anything overwhelmingly positive to say about the MiG-19S. Sure, it's got pretty good guns, and the MiG-19 is one of my all-time favorite planes, particularly the PT, especially in its heyday. But nowadays, it kind of falls behind the wayside, and I guess that's to be expected. If you look at this plane historically, when it did fight, it fought pretty poorly because it was kind of put up against the planes that we are seeing now, and you can kind of gain an appreciation as to why the MiG-19S and the MiG-19 PT kind of don't do that well in War Thunder. It's not because they don't have great missiles. It's not because the plane, I guess, doesn't have good avionics. It's down purely to the performance. The MiG-19s don't actually have the performance and the endurance that the other planes do. I guess the utility does play into a factor, where I guess if it was a gun meta, the MiG-19s would be fairly strong comparatively. But at the same time, you have things like the F-104s that would otherwise be, fairly okay in a gun meta. In fact, they would probably dominate. Now, in a missile meta, they're just okay. But you look at the MiG-19 PT, it doesn't have excellent missiles, and it still doesn't do that great. It has radar, it doesn't do that great. The problem, in my opinion, with the MiG-19S is it has no way of controlling engagements. It can't force people down. It can't force people to turn. You can just run away if you want in basically everything. And there's a very good reason why most of the planes at that sort of era, like the 10.0s, really tend to fall behind. And that's exactly why. They can't control engagements. They have no authority because they have no power in terms of their engine or their airframe or something along those lines. There's always a bigger fish. And of course, in this sort of War Thunder ecosystem, you do tend to get power crept planes, and the MiG-19S is definitely one of them. So is things like the T2, the F-100, the MiG-19 PT. I have discussed this on multiple occasions, but I do think a dedicated battle rating spot for the 10.0 planes, as in the current 10.0 planes, would be really nice. I think MiG-19S, MiG-19 PT, Su-7, the F-104s, especially the earlier ones, things like the Lightning F6, even the G91YS and the J32B would kind of be nice. In that little area, Hunter F6, I think we would have a beautiful battle rating era right there and then. But unfortunately, Gaijin decides that it's not worth decompressing. I get it. In some cases, you might want to extend queue times, blah, blah, blah. I kind of understand it, but at the same time, a part of me just wants to see it happen. Just a little bit. And sure, maybe we'll get queue times and maybe we'll experience it for ourselves and go, yeah, they were right. But a part of me just wants to see just a little test. Maybe as an event or something like that. I would absolutely love it, even if it was just for a weekend. I think that would be a great way to just try a couple things out. Maybe as a proof of concept to us as a community, but maybe just as an alternative, as a sort of fun thing to do on the weekend, with planes that are, let's face it, kind of useless otherwise. These particular matches I have are basically the only ones that I did well in, and you'll notice the types of engagements that I fought in. Those 2 phantom kills I got last game were basically handed to me. They were slow, they were being baited by other players. The MiG-21 decided that he wanted to get all nice and horny for me, and so he left himself in a very vulnerable situation. These are the only types of kills that you're going to be getting in the MiG-19S, and in fact in any of the other planes. The only exception is the F-104S, and in some cases the F-104G, but the F-104G isn't a 10.0 plane, so it kind of gets left out here. It also has missiles, so it does have a little bit more command over the battlefield, since it is able to sort of force a turn if it needs to. Now, obviously the MiG-19S does not get that. And just as a quick side note, because it's September and because it's the spring in the Southern Hemisphere, I'm getting a lot of hay fever type symptoms. So if you hear me super nasally, then that's exactly why, and I can feel it now. There's nothing I can do about it because my sinuses fucking suck. So if you'll just deal with it and put up with it for a little bit, then we'll all be fine, and we can all go and roll in a field of roses all together, and hopefully not scratch ourselves to death. I don't know where I was going with that, but regardless, back to the gameplay. The Jaguar down the bottom, the J72 down the bottom, they're all on sort of low energy, but I can't quite get them because they can sort of just get out of my way. If I was on a 1v1 with most of these planes, I would kind of have them. You can see that J7 sort of let me get him because he was a bit preoccupied on the other plane. And whilst you can sort of work as a team, it is extremely difficult to actually coordinate yourself with opponents where the engagement ranges are anywhere between 1 kilometer and 10. You get these issues where you just sort of happen to venture 10 kilometers away from your friendlies just because that's the distance you need to extend, and that really sucks. Having sort of slower engagement speeds, having people that or players or planes rather that are sort of around your caliber would help that a lot, and that's why I'm such an advocate for things like battle rating decompression. I know some people are very critical of that, and I understand, but I would, even just an event, I would be very happy with, where we just get a weekend to have a look at it. If there's no positive result from that, then fine, I get it, but I'd just like to try it out, just for myself, you know. But at the same time, we can sort of show the downsides of it here, where whilst I am in the MiG-19S, which is a very good plane, I've been left in a situation where I'm kind of stranded. The MiG-19S is able to sort of deal with opponents one-on-one. It doesn't deal with opponents well in any other situation, though. And this is something that's carried over since the MiG-19 PT was introduced way back in, I think it was December 2018, I think. But basically, it's the same story. The MiG-19s are very bad at sort of 2v2s or 3v3s, or any engagement where there's more than one opponent. And unfortunately for me, that's a situation I've ended myself up in because I can't do anything early game because I need to wait for these sort of 1v1s, and it really sucks. There's literally zero I can do, and unfortunately that's just the way the MiG-19 works. So what are potential solutions? Well, here's my favorite one. 7v7 jets. The reason why I say 7v7, 6v6 could work as well, but 7v7 I think would be a good one. There are not as many jets to worry about. There are not as many missiles to worry about. You can coordinate a little bit better because everyone's a little bit more tightly knit. And on top of that, planes that benefit from 1v1 situations will get that little extra benefit, whereas the planes that need a couple of other players, maybe like one or two extra people around them, can also get that. So maybe a 7v7 is the answer. These are things I would like to experiment, and this is something that Gaijin has sort of started to do, but I would really love to see a little bit more. And as my clinical placement ends and I get a little bit more time for War Thunder, I would absolutely love to see something like that. I think it would be something really good for the game. I think it would be very healthy. And I think at least getting the community to sort of test things out and say, look, at least we tried, that would be enough for me from Gaijin as a little bit of correspondence, if you will. Anyway, ladies and gents, thank you very much for putting up with this sort of negative video, if you will. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.